In Activity 7, Daphnia, students are introduced to Daphnia. They set up vials with a known number of Daphnia and begin to observe the population of Daphnia rise and fall over time. You will need the following materials from the kit. Activity Sheet 7, 10-ounce containers, Daphnia counters, droppers, magnifiers, vials with cap, vial holders, container of green algae, basters, Daphnia population data chart, container of Daphnia, container of extra Daphnia water, masking tape, and Daphnia transparency. You will also need to provide felt tip markers. To prepare for the activity, make a copy of Activity Sheet 7 for each student. For each team, half fill a container with Daphnia water. Add 1 dropperful of algae water to each container. Then use the baster to place about 10 Daphnia in each container. To begin the activity, inform students that they will be investigating an aquatic animal, which is an animal that lives in water. Distribute a container with Daphnia and a magnifier to each team of 2. Allow students time to examine the Daphnia. Encourage them to look closely and to watch for tiny objects moving through the water. Distribute Activity Sheet 7 and have students describe the Daphnia on their activity sheets. Explain that Daphnia are tiny freshwater animals that live in ponds and streams. Show the Daphnia graphic and point out the Daphnia's eyes, antenna, exoskeleton, digestive tract, brood chamber, and legs. Have students label the body parts on their activity sheets. When students have completed their observations, ask, how do the Daphnia move around? Students may have noticed that they swim in circles, wiggling their legs. Inform students that Daphnia also use their antennae like oars to help them swim through the water. Then ask students, what do you think the Daphnia might eat? Students will guess that Daphnia must eat something in the water that is even smaller than them. Next, point out the greenish tinge in the water in the containers. Explain that this green color comes from algae, tiny plant-like organisms that live in the water. Then explain that the digestive tract is the part of the body that food passes through. Point out the Daphnia's digestive tract on the graphic and have students look through their magnifiers to see their Daphnia's digestive tracts. Ask students, what color is the digestive tract of your Daphnia? Students should be able to see that it is green at one end and darker or black at the other. Then ask, why do you think it might be green? Students will probably guess that Daphnia eat algae, which color their digestive tracts green. Explain that Daphnia are filter feeders, removing not only green algae, but also other tiny organisms from the water and eating them. Next, as a class, compare Daphnia to ants and brine shrimp. Help students understand that Daphnia are similar to ants in that they are small, have an exoskeleton, and have antennae on their heads. They are different in that they live in the water, not on land, have more than 6 legs, and eat algae. Daphnia are similar to brine shrimp in that they are tiny, live in water, have an exoskeleton and antennae, and swim in circles. They are different in that they live in fresh water rather than salt water and have a slightly different body shape. Next, distribute a vial with a cap, a vial holder, a dropper, a piece of masking tape, and a marker to each team of 2. Have each team set up a Daphnia population in a vial. They should first label their vial with their names and today's date. Instruct students to use their droppers to fill the vial half full of the Daphnia water from the container. Add 5 Daphnia, and then place the cap firmly on the vial. Tell students to find the population chart on the activity sheet. Fill in today's date just below day 0. Record 5 Daphnia on the chart. Then post the class Daphnia population data chart and enter the starting numbers on it. Explain that each team will be observing their vials and counting Daphnia for the next 3 weeks to see how the Daphnia population changes. Inform students that they will be using Daphnia counters to make it easier to count their Daphnia populations. Distribute a Daphnia counter and an empty container to each team of 2. Borrow one team's setup and demonstrate how to count Daphnia. Pour the contents of a vial into the Daphnia counter until each partition is just filled. Count the Daphnia in the partitions and record the total number. Empty the contents of the Daphnia counter into the container and repeat the process until you have counted all the Daphnia in the vial. Finally, pour the contents of the container back into the vial. Then, have students place the vials in the vial holders and store them out of direct sunlight and away from heat sources. Remove the lid from the algae container and place in a spot where it will receive light but not direct sunlight. To replace water that evaporates and to provide food for the Daphnia, each school day add 1 dropperful of extra Daphnia water and 1 dropperful of algae water to the large Daphnia culture in the shipping container. Finally, every second or third day, distribute the activity sheets. Have students count and record the Daphnia population in their vials. Once a week, have students add half a dropper of fresh algae water to their vials to provide food for the Daphnia. Students will be discussing their population counts in Activity 8. To conclude the activity, return extra Daphnia and Daphnia water to the main shipping container. Collect the materials and return them to the kit. For science background, reinforcement activities, curriculum connections, and information about the Delta Science Reader, please consult your DSM Teacher's Guide.